Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the October Growth and Development Forum here at the Lincoln Chamber. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Todd Wilchin. I'm the Public Policy Specialist here at the Chamber. So it's been a few months since we've had a Growth and Development Forum. As many of you know, our team here at the Chamber and our community lost an exceptional leader and an impactful professional, Pat Haverty, last month. The Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development and the Lincoln community are both stronger as a result of his endless contributions and unwavering dedication throughout the years. Pat has been and will continue to be missed by all those who had the privilege to work with him. On numerous occasions, I've mentioned the challenges we've all had to address in 2020 as our community continues to tackle this pandemic and have meaningful conversations addressing racial inequalities and social justice. Our team here at the Chamber will continue to be committed to providing resources that are useful to our community. We have linked many of our resources that cover a variety of areas relating to the community response, both the COVID-19 and racial inequalities, on our website at www.lcoc.com. If you have a link to pass along, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Before we get started, I just want to thank our forum sponsors. We have Shimmer, Allo, a Nelnet company, HDR, JEO, and Lincoln Electric System. We very much appreciate their investment in the Chamber. One housekeeping note before we introduce today's presenter. Please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen to text me your questions. Time permitting, we'll get to them after the presentations. We are recording this webinar and we'll be sharing on our various social media channels, including Facebook and Twitter, and on our website. Lincoln is getting its long-awaited desire for a South Beltway, a 4-lane expressway, 11 miles east-west connection from US Highway 77 to Nebraska Highway 2 at 134th Street. The Beltway's main goal is to divert truck traffic that now travels off Highway 2 through Lincoln. South Beltway will increase safety, increase economic development, and growth for the city. During the first session of the 106th legislative session, Nebraska state senators approved authorizing a new financing process that will accelerate the Beltway's completion time from 8 to 3 years. Last spring, the NDOT broke ground on this exciting project, decades in the making. A couple weeks ago, they held a celebration where the South Beltway connects with Saltillo Road. Unfortunately, I missed it as I was on vacation in Estes Park, but I'm told it was a great event. With all the changes to the construction timeline, we invited Kyle Schneweis, Director of the Nebraska Department of Transportation, to provide an update on the South Beltway and other NDOT initiatives. Kyle Schneweis has served as the Director of the Nebraska Department of Transportation since May of 2015, after being appointed by Governor Pete Ricketts. Since that time, Schneweis has led the agency of more than 2,100 employees in building and preserving the Nebraska transportation system. Schneweis brought his extensive experience from both the public and private sector to NDOT and has promoted customer-focused and data-driven approaches to preparing the state of Nebraska to meet the transportation needs of the Nebraskans in the 21st century. Under his leadership, NDOT has emphasized transparency, stakeholder engagement with community and industry partners, as the department made strategic transportation investment to grow Nebraska's economy. Director Schneweis earned his civil engineer degree from the University of North Dakota and is a licensed professional engineer in Nebraska and Kansas. And if you read this morning's paper, you probably learned that Kyle is stepping down next month to join High Street, a national transportation analytics, planning, and policy consulting firm, as the Chief Executive Officer. Joining him this morning is Kurt Muting, District 1 Construction Engineer. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating Kyle.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that introduction. It's great to be with you all. I've got a couple of kids here at home, so I'm hoping they'll be quiet, and then we can wrap up and I can get them off to school. But I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you, and that great introduction. And I'm going to start with a little bit of background and focus mostly on the South Beltway. And then Kurt's going to do the fun part. He's got a drone video that he'll show us and narrate, where you can really see just how much work is being done out there south of town. For me, the Link South Beltway, it really captures a lot of the approach that we've tried to take at DOT. And since 2015, when Governor Ricketts was elected, it's this idea that, hey, we have a great department with a long and storied history of delivering transportation projects for the state of Nebraska. But the idea was, let's try to look at our business and find ways to do things a little bit better, and really focus on that customer service piece. And that's what we've tried to do. And I appreciate you mentioning the news. It's a little awkward for me to have that news come out. Now here I am with you guys. It's an exciting time for me and my family to think about the next step. But I tell you, it's a very hard decision to leave the DOT. When I first was appointed here, and the governor asked me to move to Nebraska, it's a little bit of a leap of faith to pick up your family and sell your house and move to a new place to work for a governor that we didn't know. And I couldn't even pick him out of a lineup of 3 people at the time. But that leap of faith, what a great thing it has been. I have absolutely loved my time here at DOT. I've loved working for this governor. It has been just the absolute highlight of my professional career. And I can't thank, the governor enough, and groups like you and the chamber who've just been so supportive of me and of the DOT as we've tried to improve our business. And then the people at DOT are just unbelievable. And you guys, you know this from dealing with them over the years, but they are so dedicated to the work, the mission. And, it's really an inspiration when you get to come to work every day with professionals who are just so committed to the improving and making our transportation system work better for the people of our state. It's really a great place to be. So they deserve a ton of credit for all the things that we've accomplished in the last few years. Certainly I play a role in it, but not without their support, without their efforts behind me. It's just, we couldn't have done it. So I really, really thank the people at DOT. When I think about the Link South Beltway, it does capture that approach, right? There's a lot of things we've done different with it, and this idea of really putting the people of Nebraska, the people of Lincoln first in our approach. I'll highlight a few of those things. I was thinking about the history of it this morning as I was preparing to come visit with you guys, and I was trying to figure out if this was a movie, like the movie The South Beltway, right? Probably would have started like in the silent era if we started at the beginning. But then when you get to the end here, it's probably a little bit of a suspense movie, but maybe even a dark comedy, because of the hiccups along the way, the number of times where you run into a hurdle and you think this is probably the thing that's going to kill this. And man, the people at DOT just so resilient to just keep going in the face of so many hurdles. And so really proud of everybody and the work that we've done to get to this point. And now we're out there, building the thing. And I know Kurt's going to talk a little bit about that in the end here. And I'm hoping that the comedy part is over. And now it's just, Kurt and his team doing what they do, which is build great roads. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Beltway, it's an 11-mile road south of town here. It'll connect at US 77 on the east side and around Saltillo Road. It'll then parallel Saltillo Road about a half mile south, and then connect over at 120th Street with Highway 2. The future home of what we hope is the south connection of the East Beltway that would then connect up to the interstate. So South Beltway is first. It's south of Saltillo, 11 miles long. It's going to be a freeway, so 4-lane freeway, like you're used to seeing, almost like the interstate. It's got 5 interchanges on it, so you can't just get on it anywhere you want. You got to use the interchanges. And the whole goal is to get the trucks and the through traffic out of Lincoln, get them off of Highway 2, get them on a facility that can let them get where they need to go, save them 20 minutes each way every time. You think about if you're a trucking company or a business, how much time and money that can save you. And then it makes our community a better place to live, because it gets that through traffic off of Highway 2 and lets us, have our commute be a little bit easier, obviously safer when you don't have as much truck traffic and some of those things out on Highway 2. So it's really going to be a great project. It's 40 plus years in the making. And so I'll give you just a little bit of history about how we got here, and then we'll turn it over to Kurt to talk about the construction. The last time I was with you, I think it was, Bruce, I think it was maybe November of last year. It was right before we were getting ready to let the project. And I remember there was one question, I don't remember who asked, and maybe they're here today, and they said, well, what are you going to do if the bids are too high? And I think I said, well, come on now. I'm an optimist. We're not going to talk about that. But if that happens, right, that'll just be one more hurdle. And of course, that was what happened. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But I distinctly remember that question and thinking, man, I hope that question does not come true. So the planning for the project did start 4 or 5 decades ago. I think it depends on who you talk to, how long ago it was first conceived of. And we hear that a lot with our projects. So this has been 40 years in the making, 50 years in the making. In some ways, the Beltway is not unique in that area. And some of that is the nature of transportation. Unfortunately, it just takes a long time to get the momentum you need to get the thing built. But also, we're often trying to look out into the future about what a community needs. And so, when you're trying to prioritize projects, oftentimes those kinds of future-looking needs don't materialize right away, or they can't rise up to the level of getting the resources allocated. And so, unfortunately, that's kind of the nature of transportation. I wish it wasn't as long, but it is the case oftentimes. And even when you think about the Build Nebraska Act being passed, and even before that, I wasn't here, but I'm told the department almost pulled the trigger on the Beltway about 12 years ago, and the planning was ready, the alignment was selected, we're ready to go. And then, the recession's here at that time, and the map just couldn't quite work, and they kind of hesitated. And then, recession is in full effect, and it kind of slips away. And that I think is the challenge, right? Is sometimes you just got to commit and you got to pull the trigger, because if you don't, I think at the time that project was probably estimated at $100 million, and here we were 15 years later or so, and the cost was $350. So that's what happens if you wait. But sometimes it's hard to get over the hurdle on those things. We do have to credit the Build Nebraska Act, Senator Fisher, who joined us last week at the celebration. That was her landmark legislation that she passed that got dedicated funding for construction and design of these kinds of projects. We have a lot of money that goes towards preserving our 10,000 miles of highways, but this was dedicated money to do the projects that have been on the shelf for so long. And so without that legislation, we wouldn't be here today talking about this. That set of legislatures deserves a ton of credit for finding a way to get those resources in place for us to be able to do that. As I arrived in 2016, that was the first time that I started getting engaged in the project. And we were entering the final stages of the planning and the design of it. And at the time, the discussion was, hey, this is a big project. It's a couple $100 million plus. We don't have enough money to do that in any 1 year or even 2-3 years of construction. So we're going to have to phase this project. We're going to do the interchange, then we're going to do a segment, and then we're going to do another segment. Eventually we'll get to the end. And that was kind of the plan. And as we talked about it, the question comes up of, well, how long do we think that'll take? And the answer was, well, it depends on how the money plays out, but it could be 7 years, could be 10 years. And I think as we talked, we just thought that is not how we want to do business here in our state. We want to focus on how do we deliver projects to the people of Nebraska soon and fast. And 10 years of construction, I don't know about you, but that's too much for me to have a half-built beltway with cones out there for 10 years where you're sealing cracks on the pavement before we've even driven on it. And so, we started asking the question, how fast can we build it if we just didn't have to worry about the money? Just put the money away for a second. How fast? And the answer was, well, if you really want to go quick, 3 years is about as fast as you could build it. And get traffic moving on that main line. And so, as we talked about that, we just decided, okay, we're going to just commit to that. That's the right thing to do for the people of the state. That's the right approach. Now, how do we do that? And we have this little problem called the Constitution of Nebraska that says pretty explicitly that we can't borrow money as a state. As you all probably know, we don't use debt in our state. I think that's served us very, very well. I came from a state that used a lot of debt. And, I think that it is serving Nebraska well. to have that approach. And the concept is that we don't want to bind future legislatures to spending that was committed in the past. We need the legislature to be able to react to things that come and make the decisions that are right at the time. And of course, that's difficult when you're trying to build a $300 million road project. But certainly that philosophy, I think, has served our state well. But there was a few things that were different about this project that I think allowed us to move forward. First was that, in my perspective, once you start building the Beltway, if you just build the interchange in a little segment, you're committed. Your future legislatures are going to have to finish it. You can't put $50 million into a project that you don't finish. So in some ways, as soon as you do, the first shovel of dirt, you're committed to the project. And so that idea of binding future legislatures doesn't really work for me in this sense. And then also, I think we figured, well, there's got to be a way for us to pay over the same timeline. So it's not like we're extending the credit of the state out far, far into the future. We'll just pay for it over the exact same timeline we were going to. And so in some ways, then we're not borrowing. We're just doing it how we would, except we're going to give the benefit to the people of getting the project done early. And so that was really the thinking as we tried to approach it from a legal perspective. And we worked with the AG. They don't take a lot of input from us, but we were willing to investigate it and issue an opinion about it from a constitutional perspective. And as we laid out our defense, I think they realized this is a good approach. It's common sense. It works for the people, and it's defensible. This is not something that fits into that classic mold of binding future legislatures. And so it came back positive, saying the argument was sound. And that was really the key for us, is once we knew we had some legal ground to stand on, now it's about the details, right? And so we had to try to structure the contract in a way that built in the constitutionally required appropriation risk, meaning that a contractor has to understand that future legislatures will be making these appropriation decisions, and that could risk the contract. And that's not an uncommon thing across the country in transportation, but it's certainly new in Nebraska. And oftentimes, and every state sort of approaches it differently with their statutes and their approaches. So trying to figure out a way to design the contract in a way that met that constitutional requirement, but also would allow contractors to bid on the project and do it in a way that doesn't overvalue that risk piece to make the contract such that we couldn't actually deliver it. And there was a lot of iterations on this, and I have to give a lot of credit to the folks at DOT, the legal team, the financial team. They really worked hard, and the number of times where we thought maybe we had hit a dead end in terms of that analysis, it was almost countless number of times in trying to find that way. But every time, my message to the team was, no, come on. This is one more hurdle. We can work our way around this. And the team they just kept believing, and they were able to get there. And so that was how we approached it. The theme in the contract really was options. We wanted to give contractors options on how to approach it. And we were able to do that and structure in a way that we believe that it gave contractors options to be able to search out a finance deal for them that allowed them to make our costs as low as possible. And it was pretty simple, really. When you zoom out, the contract just says, hey, we're going to pay you over the same timeline, that 10-year timeline that it would be if we phased it. Here's what that payment structure is going to look like for you. Now, the only difference between this and a regular project is we require you to get this thing done in 3 years. And so that's how we did it. I will say that, sometimes I think that the public sector can really, really benefit from sitting down and having these kinds of policy and logistical conversations with the people we do business with. Because it would be one thing for a DOT to have this idea and then lock ourselves in a room and come up with what we think is the way the contract should be structured, and then put it out and then be surprised when, either nobody bids or the costs, because of the risk we didn't understand, were so high that we can't afford it. And so we made a pretty conscious effort to sit down and have lots of conversations with people in the finance world, people in the construction world, to just structure that thing in a way that gave them options and allowed us to hopefully get a better cost. And those kinds of conversations are important. I don't think that that government does that enough, where you sit down sort of shoulder to shoulder and try and figure out a way to improve the way that we can serve our industry folks in a way that will allow us then to serve the taxpayer. And it's not about sort of giving anybody an inside track or trying to structure it in a way that someone has an advantage or anything like that. It's actually the opposite. It's how do we structure these things so that we can get good service from you when we finally go to build the thing. And so that was the approach, and it really was important to us, that philosophy of, hey, it's okay to reach out to industry folks and figure out what would work for them. And I think that was one of the reasons we were able to even have a contract, but then also get across the line. So that kind of takes us up to the bidding. You'll recall that we had a flood about a year before that, and it was really causing us a lot of stress. We were seeing rising costs and some other things, so we were nervous. I think our $200 million estimate, as a result of some of those increases and some things we learned about the project, had risen to about 275. And so we were really hoping for something around that, or something around 300 million. And the bid came in at 350. And that was a bad day. When we got that bid, I think everybody thought this may be the nail finally that just keeps us from being able to do it. I think my message again was, okay, pause. Let's take a deep breath here and assess where we are. And as we looked at the bid and looked at the analysis, I think what we learned is there's some things that we didn't understand in the bid that the contractor did, and we determined that it was it was more expensive than we wanted. That didn't take much determination, but we determined it was a good bid. And so after a lot of discussion about options, we determined, this thing is a go. We're gonna say yes. And so we did sign that contract, and that was in, I believe, February or so of this year. And then there was one more hurdle, and that was that in March, as the contractor went to sell their bonds, and that was the way they had structured the deal, was to sell our contract essentially on the bond market. They went, I think it was March 19th was the day they went to market, and that turned out in the middle of COVID, in the early days of it, to be the single worst day in the history of the market. And that's not hyperbole. In like the 100 years of the market, it was the single worst day in that not a single bond sale was accomplished that day. And that was a tough day. I remember the conversation I had with the contractor later that day. There was a big question mark about whether or not the contractor was going to be able to go forward with the contract we had signed with him. And that would have reset the whole thing. And so again, the message, right? Well, let's pause. Let's partner. So we've been partners along the way with industry as we tried to get here. Let's just see if there's some options that we can get through. And we spent a couple of weeks exploring options. I was in Washington trying to figure out a way to explore the TIFIA loan program that the federal government has for private industry to do infrastructure. Meanwhile, the contractor was on his side working through some options. And a couple of weeks later, they were able to amazingly and almost miraculously sell those bonds. And so then we were on again. So this sort of up again, on again approach, it's just like every time you turn, there was one more hurdle. And just when you think you had made it across the line, you hadn't. And yet here we are. And so the contract has started. If you drive out there, it is amazing the amount of work that is being done. We've moved some 2.5 million cubic yards of dirt. There are 100 trucks out there, and I think when you see the video that we're going to show you in a minute of the drone, it's amazing to me to see just how many trucks are out there as that drone flies over. And each of those trucks, I think they carry 13, 14 cubic yards of dirt, and so that one truck carries a dozen yards, and here we've moved over 2 million yards, and that just tells you how much work. It's 6 days a week. It's sun up to sundown every day. Getting that dirt moved. We have about 5 million to move before it's all over. And then of course there's paving to come after that. They've done 19 of the 39 culverts. So about half of the culverts that need to move the water and control the drainage are in place already. And it's really an amazing accomplishment. I think, Chris Hawkins, whose company has the contract, he's hesitant to say these sorts of things, but I think we're a little bit ahead of schedule. And, you know, he's looking at the long term and doesn't want to get too optimistic. But I like to be optimistic, and I'm here to say we're on schedule, if not ahead. We plan to open traffic in 2023, and then we'll be doing side road work into that next year. But here we are. We're just a few short years away from being able to drive on it. And you know, I should say, as exciting as that is for us, and for I hope all of you to hear how fast we're building this thing. If you're a business along that route, if you live along that route, if you use Saltillo Road, you know, it's no secret this is an inconvenience. For the rest of us, it's just a great sign of progress. For those that are out there every day, it's a tough time. I mean, those 100 trucks got to go somewhere, and so you know there's dirt. That dirt creates dust. I mean, and that's problems, the noise, the inconvenience of having routes closed and then open and then closed. It's just not easy, and so we're sympathetic to that, and that's been our approach all along the way. Is how do we build this in a way that has the least amount of impacts to everybody out there? Understanding that doesn't mean there's no impacts. In fact, it's the opposite. There's significant impacts. But I would tell you, if you're a business owner out there, if you live out there, you know, don't hesitate to let us know when something's not going the way you think it should. We're adjusting as we can to be able to make this as easy on everybody out there as possible. And man, we really appreciate the support that they're giving us. So many landowners that we had to work with to be able to get the alignment in place. And for the most part, just great folks, and all you know, eager for us to get out of town, but also so supportive of us as we go through the construction, and really thankful for those relationships. And like I said, if you're out there, or Bruce, if you guys hear, you know, through the chamber that there's something we need to do to better support those businesses or the folks down there, we are all ears, and we'll do what we can to try and find ways to solve that. So the last thing I'll say before I turn it over to Kurt is I just want to talk about our construction team out there. It is an amazing group of folks. I've had a few tours, 3 tours of the site now, and I just can't be more impressed with the folks that we have out there, and they're excited. I mean, this is a generational, once in a lifetime, once in a career opportunity for many of them to build something that will just be such a game changer for the people of our state and of our community. And they're out there every day making sure it gets done right and that it gets done on time. And what an accomplishment that they'll be able to share with us in a few years, but really a crowning achievement for many of them. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Kurt. Kurt is our District 1 construction engineer. He oversees all construction activities in the district, which is Lincoln and much beyond. But, Kurt is doing a great job supervising the team out there, making sure we're on track. And if there's anybody who knows more about the Lincoln South Beltway and the construction of it, I have not met him. So with that, Kurt, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Thanks for the kind words. Can everybody hear, or can you hear me on that end? Because I'm on my phone, so.
Yeah, I can hear you, Kurt.
Okay. And I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if that comes up. Did that work?
Yep, we got it. I can see it.
Okay. Okay. A couple notes before we fly this thing. This video is about 3 weeks old, so some things have changed. This project changes for sure every week, but really it changes daily. So this is a little behind, but it's okay. It shows the progress. So we're going to fly a little bit offline due to some regulations of drone flying. We're not allowed to fly over moving equipment or moving vehicles or people. So you'll notice we're kind of offline for this trip. We are out at 120th Street, flying west. This is 120th Street for those that are familiar. Not a whole lot of work on this interchange yet. They're getting started, as you can see, with some stripping of the topsoil and clearing activities. But this will be changing in the spring quite a bit. And these here they're slash mulch piles from our tree cutting project last winter. We asked them to save us some slash mulch that we can use for erosion items, which will all be used up. And we're going to come up. I'll try and probably jump ahead to get this in within 15 minutes or so. Now we're coming up to, this is the OPBD Railroad, if those are familiar with where that location is. We're still flying west. This area is really beginning to take shape up here. A lot more work is needed, but it's, you know, one thing you're going to notice throughout this whole video is there's activity going everywhere. Seems like there's a piece of equipment or two pretty much throughout the entire project, and our guys are trying to keep up with everything, and they're doing well. We're coming up to Saltillo Road is running through here, and this is 98th Street that goes north. 96th Street is up here. I'm going to stop it up here just for a brief moment, just to kind of explain what's going on. This area has been, they started in this area back in May, hauling up in here. We had Saltillo open. Saltillo Road was open, but we recently closed it to get this big cut out. These are 30 to 40 foot deep cuts, and we're going to build a bridge on Saltillo over the freeway. So our main line will be running here, the bridge over Saltillo. We actually have some piling that they've got in the ground for this bridge. They just started that. They're getting some more piling for center pier. And that's the changes that take place so fast. 96th Street has been relocated and comes up here and ties into Saltillo. So this will be permanently closed when we're all done. And I mean, it's closed now. It won't reopen. You can see a bunch of the structures. I think we have, I know Kyle mentioned some numbers. I think some updated numbers is I think we have 25 of the 41 box culverts completed. These are big segmental box culverts. A lot of work that goes into those. We're coming up to 82nd Street. 82nd has got a little weird interchange that we're going to build here. There will be a bridge that's kind of offline that goes off this way. And I think they call that a folded diamond interchange, for those familiar with that. We're coming up to 96th Street, and you start to notice that they're getting a lot of the topsoil placed. You're going to see a lot more erosion matting and stuff already in place. Trying to get the permanent stuff done. We've got some fencing done. 68th Street. Here's where it used to run. It's through here. We'll have a bridge over the freeway again. They're getting some culvert work done in these areas, at these abutment areas. And then to the north, to tie into Saltillo, 68th will get realigned over to 70th. And then we'll have a roundabout at Saltillo and 70th. This has been another mass excavation area all the way through here. Again, these cuts are really deep. The contractor is well organized. Where the trucks are going, it takes a lot of preparing and organizing to get everything where it needs to be. But now you're starting to see some of the erosion matting in place. We've got some fencing done. This whole area is just a massive cut. We're coming up to 54th Street. For those that have been out there, probably have noticed that we've got some temporary signals out here. That's to help, for safety of people using 54th Street, because all these trucks are crossing 54th Street. And it's working well. I think most people are understanding what's going on there. We do have someone that stands there at that light and can trip that light if need be, to get people stopped or get the truck stopped. Next, we're going to come up to 38th Street. We have 38th Street closed, and that portion of 38th Street will not reopen. It's getting realigned, and you can kind of start seeing the shape of an interchange showing up here. 38th Street is getting realigned also. 38th Street to the south is going to get realigned, and I think we're going to fly this. We'll show this here in a minute, but you can see the ramp starting to take place. We'll have a bridge over the freeway again here, and it will tie into Saltillo up here with a roundabout. And I think we're going to switch here, and we're going to fly from south to north. This is 38th Street, where we were flying. So this is the new realignment. Again, a bridge will be placed here. These will be the ramps. Still a lot of dirt that's got to get moved into these areas to get the fills up. I think we're gonna turn now. This is BNSF Railway. These are big fills here to get the bridge over the railroad. Oops. These areas have been worked since we started basically hauling dirt on May 1st. This has been a really wet area. Contractors really worked. This is Jamaica Trail. We did allow the contractor to cross Jamaica Trail. We also have a person here standing for any pedestrians, bicycles, to keep them safe. They are trucks are crossing here. Haven't had any issue with that at all, and the contractor will be required to make sure they take care of Jamaica Trail when we're all done. So we'll have a bridge over Jamaica Trail. This is Salt Creek. Contractors put in a temporary bridge there, not only to build the bridge at Salt Creek, but the trucks are using it to get dirt into these areas because these are landlocked areas that's hard to get to. And then this is 25th Street, and we'll have a twin set of bridges over 25th Street, just like these other areas. Getting these fills up. All the dirt that was back at 96 and Saltillo, and in those areas is all coming down into this area. So as Kyle said, those trucks that are running on Saltillo, that's where they're heading. They're coming down to 25th Street, and they're either turning into here to dump or they're turning up into here to dump. So, and there are, at any given day, there's 90 to 100 trucks running. We're coming up here to the West Interchange. I think a lot of people have heard about. We do have a little strip of pavement in here, but this will be basically westbound, and this is eastbound main line, and it will wrap up through here. We're gonna fly up here this ramp here that will be northbound 77 to eastbound N2. There's several piers through here for a big flyover bridge. It's going to come across over here. It's going to wrap in up into here. This is Bennett Road. We will fly Bennett Road here, and I'll show you that here just a little bit. It was basically a full reconstruction. So this is it's really starting to take shape. It's even you can even tell more now what it's like after the 3 weeks more of work. But this is where that big flyover bridge is going to go. That's going to fly over into flyover 77, turn and wrap up into here. I think there's 12 or 13 piers that are going to get built for this. This will be the abutment here, pier, pier, one here. Yeah, these here. This one's being built. They just poured the cap on this the other day. So things are starting to take shape. We have several structures we've got to build in this whole area, bridges, and we have 2 bridges that are under construction now out of the 21 We're expecting 8 more bridge crews this December, so things are really going to ramp up. This area, as most people are probably familiar with, this is our temporary Saltillo Road connection to connect east and west Saltillo Road. This is closed now. We're building a roundabout up here. It is just about done. Again, this is 3 weeks old, but we're on a temporary roundabout now. Our goal is to get the full roundabout in use by winter. It will help a lot with snow removal operations and what's needed there. That kind of shows a better picture. Now we're up at Bennett Road. We got a little bit more work there to get fully operational with a box culvert at that location. But as you can, if anybody's been on Bennett Road, we're flying west. It's just been fully reconstructed. It's really an improvement for this roadway. We've also did this mile here to the west. Bennett Road will, once we're done, Bennett Road will not have access to 77. There'll be a turnaround here to access this residence. Same on this side, there'll be a turnaround here, no access at 77. And now we're flying east on Bennett Road just to show you that reconstruction and how things take place. Again, getting a lot of the erosion control, a lot of the topsoil spread. We had to phase this a little bit to make sure we had access to all these residents. And then when we get up here to 77, we're gonna switch and we're gonna go clear down up to the north end, and we're gonna start flying south. So we're gonna start up at Rokeby Road, or just south of there, which is here. Try and point out some things. If anybody's been out there lately, this pavement is now in. They're getting ready, hopefully yet this week, to pour another stretch in here. We have a big structure to build, a box culvert to build in here, and that will get started. But this is Rokeby Road. This is the little nursery and landscape place up here for those that are familiar. This over here was a borrow area that the contractor used for dirt in this area. Didn't have anything to do with the project, but that's why that's kind of tore up a little bit. We do have a field office in this building here to help us keep track of everything. It's really nice to be right there on the project. And we're just getting up here to Saltillo again. This next part is just kind of show a video of the West Interchange again. But this roundabout I was showing earlier, we'll have an identical one over here to connect to Schneweis to get into the all these businesses. This is a camper place. And this is just kind of to spin, and this will be the off ramp on the Saltillo for southbound. There'll be an on ramp here to get to northbound from Saltillo. Again, more slash mulch that we had. We had 5 of these piles from our tree cutting project. We saved 25,000 cubic yards of slash mulch that we're using for erosion control. And that ends the video. Bruce, I'm going to try and...
Thank you for doing that.
Sure.
When yesterday and a little behind the scenes, Kurt got an invitation late last night to join us this morning because I realized if I play the video, it's going to be quiet. So Kurt, thank you for being flexible and getting out here to help us this morning. It's much better for our group than if I would have had to try to do that.
No problem. Oh, Am I unshared yet?
Nope. There you go. I turned you off there, Kurt. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Kurt and Kyle, thank you so much. I'll echo kind of what you mentioned earlier, Kyle. I remember, and you mentioned the railroad crossings. Part of the project is being funded by the Railroad Transportation Safety District. And I know Roger's on the call. Going back to the first time I met you, Kyle, over at the county board office, I remember talking about the challenges that we knew we would be facing, but we didn't know what they were. And I know that that's one of the challenges that we all face is the unknown. And so, and I remember what happened in '08. And prior to that, all the struggles that both the city, the county, the state, and even the federal government had with this project. And so I remember one of the things that we were struggling with back when I was on the county board was the match, you know, that part of the project that was going to be financed by local taxpayers. And it was kind of a struggle. And I remember meeting with Deb Shore, who chaired the RTSD, Mayor administration, and we talked about potentially prepaying that match, committing local tax dollars upfront to demonstrate that the local government believed in this project. We were willing to do a couple other things in that agreement to show our commitment. And I remember, you know, it was a long shot. We were in that meeting and we didn't really know what to expect. In all reality, I think another director or another administration would have said no to that agreement. They wouldn't have accepted it. I was pleasantly surprised when we got the good news that the state was going to accept that agreement. And it couldn't have been done without your leadership, without the leadership of the governor, without your team at the state and our team here at the local level. And like I said, it's just, I think in 3 years, this definitely will be a project that we can all look back on with pride. And so again, I want to thank you, Kyle, and your team for all the work you've done. With that, I would just ask, I want to remind people that they can submit questions via the Q&A button. I have a few questions real quick. And I want to make out, Kyle, that individual that asked you about the cost. He is on this call. He's a former county commissioner, Ray Stevens. So he continues his interest in this project, just like I do as a former county commissioner. And I do remember that conversation. So.
Yeah, well, Ray, you can see the future, and I wish you hadn't been so right. But as I told you at the time, you know, if we face one more hurdle, we'll face one more hurdle, and we were able to get there.
With that, going back to the bridges, and I think that's kind of my question has to do with when you're constructing the not the bridges over the railroads, but the bridges that you're constructing over the South Beltway. You mentioned Saltillo. There's a couple others, and I don't remember as far as when those bridges are going to be built. Are they going to be built for the future? I mean, are they going to be 2-lane? Are they going to be 4-lane? Are they going to, I guess, be constructed in a way to allow for future growth?
Well, I can just say that, you know, those are things we think about in all of our projects. Is we're not going to build this project just for today. We're going to build it for the future. And the example would be out on the east side. You know, we know the hope is to come in and do the East Beltway at some point. So let's build that interchange in such a way that it functions today, but also minimizes the reconstruction of the cost of trying to tie in at the end. And so same thing with the bridges now and those roads. I know not all of those roads are planned to be 4 lanes, for example. There, you know, some of them are 2 lanes. But I know that we've done the traffic projections. We try to predict what it's going to be 20, 30, 40 years from now and build it in such a way that we can accommodate that. But I don't know if you have a specific one about how many lanes the bridge is going to support. Maybe Kurt can answer that. But if not, I just tell you, you know, that's the approach. You know, we're never perfect in terms of being able to predict everything that's going to happen, but we don't want to be back out tearing out a project 10 years after we build it.
Well, and so and one of the questions, again, Ray had a point. His question is related to mine, which is Saltillo. He's asking what plans are there or what's being done to mitigate the damage being done to Saltillo. But I'm looking at, as far as the Saltillo safety project that will follow this, because there's the issue with Saltillo is that it's a 2-lane roadway. It's a county road, and it does need to be improved, not only for safety reasons but also just traffic. And so I know there's plans to widen and create a wider roadway. So that's just what I was asking is, would the bridges associated with this project be able to accommodate that safety project?
Kurt, do you have any thoughts on that? Is that something you've talked about? Kurt's you're muted, Kurt, if you trying to answer.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, as far as the planning and all that, I can't speak much to that. I'm more on the construction side. I know that everything we're building is going to accommodate two-way traffic, 2 lanes of traffic as far as those overhead structures. That would be at Saltillo, 82nd, 68th, 54th. So I don't know what the thought process was going in, and whether there's expansion availability after we're done. Probably more for the design team than the construction team. Not to dodge the question, but
no, it's artfully dodged, Kurt. And I think what we can do is get that answer to you,
Yeah.
Especially those on the county level, so that you are prepared and can work with us going forward. And then in terms of the Saltillo Road question, that is a challenge for us. Is that road, as you know, is already in a condition we all wish was improved. That's why there's a project planned, and yet here we are putting 100 trucks a day on it. And so how it's probably going to have some challenges over the next 2 or 3 years. And all I can say, and Kurt, you can follow me here, but that relationship with the county, county engineer Dingman and her team is an important one as we go forward. And it's like any other challenge we've faced on this project all along the way is, we need to be aware of it. We need to be focused on it. And when the time comes to make a decision to do something, we'll be prepared to do that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I think, first of all, Bruce has a question, but before we get to that, Jeannie McClure wants to send her many thanks to Director Schneweis for his leadership during his tenure at NDOT. So I just wanted to share that comment. And I would say that many of us share Jeannie's sentiment. So again, thank you, Kyle, for your leadership. Bruce, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah. Thank you, Todd. And I would just echo what Jeannie had just mentioned too. And thank you so much, Kyle, for your leadership and just your willingness. And we knew this the first time we met you, your willingness to be innovative, to be forward thinking, to always be optimistic. And I think when you tell this story that you did about South Beltway and just the whole challenges that you had all along the way, not only your leadership, but your steady leadership, the points where people get concerned, people, tend to kind of be rash, and just your willingness to say, let's just take a breath here and let's hunker down. And that so reflects just the character of the people out at the Department of Transportation to everybody we've ever worked with out there. So you've done an outstanding job. You've got an outstanding crew out there, and we know that'll continue. We're really glad that you're going to stay in Lincoln as well. So my question is, and you kind of touched on it a little bit too, referencing the East Beltway, and it almost seems like, come on, give us a chance to get South Beltway done, Bruce, first before you start talking about this. But that's just the nature of the business, the nature of a community that's growing. What advice would you give us as far as, making sure that it doesn't take us 40 years to get that done? I know we've got the corridor protected. And, one of the first meetings that Wendy and I had with you, we talked about, I remember this, you asked about transportation improvement districts, and we still don't have those. There was some legislation about 4 or 5 years ago maybe more than that, that was introduced by a senator out of Columbus, Nebraska, that's no longer in this legislature. But can you talk a little bit about, moving forward, what would be helpful, or just kind of give your insights, if you could, on here's what
Sure.
I would prepare for?
Sure. Well, and I appreciate the kind words, Todd, Bruce, Jeannie, others. It means a lot. Thank you for those. So what we don't want is 40 years from now, my son to be at the groundbreaking for the East Beltway when he's 60. Like we need to find a way to get this thing done. You talk to people in town, and we all know, hey, half the challenge is getting up to the interstate. I live in the 27th and Highway 2 area. It's like, hey, South Beltway isn't going to help me. I want to get north, get to Omaha. So the East Beltway is really something we need to focus on. It's not that we gotta not celebrate too much here. Let's think about how we really get this whole thing across the line. But it's not going to be easy. I'll tell you, it's longer than the South Beltway. At $350 million, this is already the most expensive project we've ever done at one time. So you can just see just those things alone. It's like, okay, this is not going to be something we can just snap our fingers and make happen. I think that you mentioned that the transportation improvement districts. So a couple thoughts. I think that one thing we as a community have to just recognize that if we don't want to wait 50 years, and maybe we do, but if we don't, we're going to need to start thinking about any and every option. And it's going to take probably a holistic team approach, much like the South, where we got the city putting in a share, we got the county, we got some support from our friends in Washington, and then the state's coming in with the big lift. But we need to think about if there are other ways to get us across the line. And I'll throw out a 4-letter word here, the idea of tolls. I don't support tolls. I don't think that it's something that we need to do on a road that already is there. But if that's the only, if you could learn that maybe you put a little bit of a toll on that east side, and it's how you get it done. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. Maybe that's something we as a community need to be supportive of. Now, I don't know that the math works on that. I don't know if there's enough traffic. I don't know. You can't charge $50 to drive on it to just make the math work. But what if that could be a part of it? I think and I don't mean to say that's our solution. What I mean to say is we as a group, we need to be open to that. And when somebody has an idea like that some people are going to hate, right? You can't shoot it down. You got to say, well, let's look at it. Let's look at what it would do. Let's see if it helps us get there. And then look at what the costs of that are, not just in terms of cost to the user, but costs, to us as a larger society about whether that's a road we want to go down. So I would say the same thing about improvement districts. I've seen that work in other places. Could we be beneficial to getting the East Beltway done? I think a project like the East Beltway is maybe what you need to be able to get something like improvement districts allowed in our state. You need a reason. You can't just have this sort of, hey, we need improvement districts. Maybe there's a catalyst to really make something go. But I think I don't necessarily support that either. I just think that we need to be able to be very, very open to those ideas. And we need people like you, Bruce, and others to just continue to look for those kinds of opportunities and not shy away from them because they're scary or because they're different. And that's the only way we're going to get there, honestly, is if we come up with something different. And, there are downsides to those things. You think about folks, I'm already paying my gas tax. I'm already paying for sales tax to build this dang road, and now you're going to toll me too every time I get on it. That's something we have to think about. But maybe it's a way that you can get there. And so those are conversations we need to have. We don't need to take philosophical hard stands on any of that stuff. We need to debate them and think about it if we're ever to get there.
Kyle, thank you so much. I think that I had a similar question that Bruce asked, and I very much appreciate your response. I think that's something that we can work on in your new role as you transition to the private sector. I think you'll be a great partner, continue to be a great partner for the chamber and for the community. And I think those are conversations that we're going to keep having, and it'll be, again, sad to see you go, but we'll be welcoming you in your new role at High Street. And so with that,
Thank you, Todd.
I'm going to wrap up. I got a few concluding announcements. First, we have a few events coming up. Tomorrow, we have our virtual fall forum with the state chamber. It's at 8 o'clock tomorrow. It's a program that will feature a number of state senators and candidates for the legislature. We'll also be receiving an update from the state chamber. Also next week, we will have our virtual Hill visits on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We have details on these events on our website. It's www.lcoc.com/events. We also have details on these events. I know in this week's first call email, we had information that came out on Monday. So if you've not had a chance to look at those events, we'd encourage you to do so. And again, just want to thank Kyle and Kurt for joining us today. It was a great presentation. We will be, like I said, sharing this later today. So if anyone would like to look back or share the information, we would encourage you to do so. So with that, unless Bruce or anyone else has anything, I'll just wish everybody a good luck, and we are adjourned.